Welcome to the 2021 Nautilus Book Awards Author Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Christine Upchurch. Now celebrating 21 years of honoring better books for a better world, Nautilus Book Awards continues to embrace books from a wide spectrum of the publishing industry. Books which radiate hope and wisdom. Books which nurture our inner connection and inspire us to connect together as individuals, as communities, and as planetary citizens. This is a vast conversation, one which is more important today than ever before. Today, we are focusing the spotlight on author Victor Bucklew, who has won a Nautilus Silver Award for his book entitled The Hidden Gifts of Addiction, The Direct Path of Recovery. He has won in the category of personal growth, either self-published or small press. Victor Bucklew is a counselor in training, a scientist, a mindfulness-based stress reduction facilitator, and an environmental activist, and somebody who has experienced his own addiction and has been in long-term recovery. Victor received his PhD in laser physics from Cornell University and currently researches the quantum mechanics of light. Again, I want to congratulate Victor Bucklew on his Nautilus Silver Award for his book entitled The Hidden Gifts of Addiction, The Direct Path of Recovery. Victor, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here and to talk with you.
You know, Victor, I love that the title is about the hidden gifts, and we're going to get into that. But first, let's hear a little bit about your own personal struggle with addiction and how you stepped away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So addiction here, I guess in its more overt forms, I really kind of noticed in my early teens, and kind of went tried all the different substances and was addicted to most of them, particularly opiates. So I was a heroin addict for 7 years. And I've been currently 14 years in recovery from opiate addiction. But when you ask about kind of my journey with addiction, and maybe we'll get into that later, there's some subtlety to that that's kind of evolved over time for me about what really addiction is. And addiction more is kind of a process that is present in kind of each moment and isn't necessarily a problem, but kind of more about how we're relating to it in that moment.
Fascinating. So when you think about heroin addiction, many people never, ever get off of that. What prompted you to begin your journey to heal?
So at the time, I had the previous 3-4 years, I had tried to quit about every method, technique I could think of, hundreds of times, and it would just, each time I would try to quit, I'd make it a couple days, and then inevitably relapse. And it was just this like cycle of using, quitting, relapse, using, quitting, relapse, and it just felt like I was kind of done. I didn't know if there was any sort of future. I certainly couldn't imagine one. At the time, I had been going to a methadone clinic, and still it was kind of helping in some ways, but not really. And I remember just very clearly still, I remember waking up one morning. It was the morning after Christmas. It was about 14 years ago now. And just hearing this voice I had never heard before. And it was soft, kind, just this very loving, trusting voice. And it said, "You never need to use again." Getting goosebumps just saying that out loud again. And I didn't. I knew it carried the power to kind of actualize itself. And that didn't mean everything was easy afterwards, but there was kind of a resolution in that of like, I'm not going to use. I didn't know how I write in the book. I didn't know how I would live. That took kind of many years. It's still an ongoing process of kind of learning to live with oneself. But I would say that was kind of the turning moment for the opiate addiction.
That gives me goosebumps too, hearing about that experience. Would you please read part of your book to open the door to this concept of there being gifts within addiction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just read a couple pages here just from the introduction that just kind of opens up this inquiry into the kind of the possibility of there being something worthwhile in this domain that normally just seems so hopeless and just barren of any sort of value. And so this is from the introduction in the book. Is it possible that addiction shows up in our lives for reasons other than to decimate us and hurt those around us? Although addiction does both of these things and more, taking lives, relationships, families, hope, and health, the havoc it wreaks might also provide a precious gift to those who are open to receiving it. What if the destruction left in the wake of addiction is fertilizing the soil for new life, similar to the growth that inevitably follows in the aftermath of a forest fire? Besides preparing the soil for new growth, what if the suffering of addiction leaves a seed behind? Through care and attention, that seed can grow into a resilient tree, capable of flourishing in the most challenging of life situations. Recent psychological research shows that well-being is a process, not an endpoint, similar to learning how to ride a bike or play a musical instrument. It takes practice and commitment and developing good habits, but it's also about enjoying the journey and not obsessing on results. Navigating the ups and downs, exploring the side streets, grassy lawns, and back alleys of our lives is part of what makes us human and makes us whole. Recovery from addiction is no different. It too is a process. As we explore our addictions to substances and other people, and then press inward to subtler psychological and spiritual terrains, we will usually find at the heart of addiction the same fearful clenching, a habituated and unconscious resistance to what we fear or dislike in this moment. If we are really honest with ourselves, we discover the energy of addiction almost everywhere we look. It is ingrained in some way into almost every aspect of our lives. With this in mind, can you feel safe enough to relax a little around what is okay and what is not okay? Can you be brave enough to stop stigmatizing addiction and relax your labels around what addictive behavior is or isn't? You can choose to look inside yourself and explore this inquiry anew. What qualities can you recognize and develop to help navigate, live with, and perhaps even find beauty in the energy of addiction within you? When you meet what has been labeled addiction in this way, is the word addiction still fitting? In these moments, it may seem more like you are experiencing the mysterious movement of life energy within you, rather than a well-defined, separate, and scary thing called addiction or craving.
That's wonderful. And you bring up this issue of labeling. What is detrimental about the concept of labeling something as an addiction?
For myself, I feel like it reduces something that's so complex and so much of a process and something that's always a little bit different into a thing that appears kind of solid and fixed, and that we kind of understand it and then we know how to work with it. And my experience is that that's not really true for most of us. I think it can be helpful to have an understanding of addiction, and it can be helpful of, there's a lot of really great research out there about what's helpful and what's not helpful. But I think when we constrain our understanding of addiction and our experience of addiction to a particular behavior, or something that we're either doing or we're not doing, we really limit ourselves, and we limit our the possibilities of recovery from addiction as well.
Mm. So in your book, you talk a lot about resistance and its role in both addiction and recovery from addiction. Why?
For myself, resistance, unconscious resistance when it's not seen, feels like it is addiction. So right now speaking, just noticing there's, just this little kind of subtle clenching kind of in the chest, in the voice almost even, the sense of like giving an interview. I hope these words sound good. I hope I'm making sense, and just playing that out, just kind of seeing where those sensations would go, kind of come into stories of like needing to put on a performance, needing to say something profound, and then it kind of turns into this this very kind of restricting and constraining experience of who I am, and how I'm able to relate and kind of show up in this moment. And so I feel like, even right now, I notice addiction, that energy of addiction and resistance. And when it's noticed, it feels connecting almost, being able to share that. There's a vulnerability to that. There's something that feels like life affirming to that. When it kind of plays out its life without seeing what's happening, I think that's when kind of the more kind of overt destructive behaviors of addiction come into play. And not to trivialize a lot of those destructive behaviors by saying, this is the same as, what it was like for me in the middle of, using heroin. But it's this, my understanding and experience is that it's the same process.
It's really interesting. It's so interesting. So with resistance, with turning towards addiction, is there an aspect of trust that is missing for people who are addicted?
Yeah, I think so. Just trusting in this moment. I think trusting that this moment is enough, that it's really self-compassion, that these feelings, sensations in the body, often overwhelming, incapacitating, the repetitive nature of thinking that's kind of fueled by the energy of addiction, that it makes sense. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and trusting that is indeed the case, I think opens up the possibility of being able to respond in a different way. And for myself, that's made all the difference.
Mm. So Victor, what are some of the other gifts that can come from addiction and recovery?
Just sitting with that, seeing what's going to emerge. So here, there's not like something I can point to that's like, this is a gift, and if you read the book, you're going to walk away with kind of a laundry list of things that that you've gained. The gift with like a capital G feels like your life, like a life that you're free to live, and the sense of recognizing like that there's just a soft joy here in each moment that we can all partake in, and recognize ourselves as connected with. And for myself, that's the biggest gift I think I could ever be given.
And that's a huge gift, whether you've faced, a serious addiction or not. Many of us desire that exact thing. Mm. So one of the things that you point out in your book is that addiction, we often think of addictions as being something such as heroin or alcohol or, overeating. You say there's a subtler aspect to that. What is addiction?
So earlier, just the kind of the reflection of what was going on kind of internally as I was speaking, just that resistance, that kind of unconscious resistance. If it could speak, it would probably say something like that, this moment isn't okay. It's not okay what's happening. And we need to get this or that in order to feel better. And then kind of the million different forms and ways that can kind of find life in addictive behavior, or even in like very subtle things like, addiction to screens, addiction to thinking, even to valuing a certain aspect of our experience more than others. It's just, there's kind of no end to how addiction can emerge.
And I think about how if we're really self-aware and have engaged in any kind of mindfulness practice, we're addicted all day long, whether it's a certain food or a cup of coffee in the morning to the screen time, as you say, to talking to a certain person every day, whatever it is. It makes perfect sense to me. Mm-hmm. So I know that you have faced serious addiction. Are you grateful for having faced it and recovered, or do you wish that life had been such that you never faced it at all?
I'm absolutely grateful. If you had asked me that a couple years into recovery, I don't think that perspective would have been alive in the same way that it is now. But absolutely, it feels very similar to some of the literature talks about the possibilities in post-traumatic growth. And I feel like those same possibilities are present with addiction and its healing. And it just really kind of opens one up, and if kind of met while one's being opened up, if you can kind of muster courage every now and then just to be present with what's unfolding within you, I think that really works on you in a particular kind of way that allows for a more substantial sense of self, of being here to emerge. And so there's a lot of gratitude for that process.
Victor, do you have a final message for those who are facing serious addiction?
The message would be that there's hope, first of all, and that one doesn't need to wait years to feel better. That we've talked about addiction as a process, but recovery is also a process, and that sense of each moment that one kind of recognizes that just here, breathing, alive in this moment. And, the energy of addiction may be kind of doing its thing, but it's not a problem. It's there, and you still feel it. This isn't a kind of a disassociated kind of thing. You're still in touch with it, and it can be excruciating. But that sense of recovery, that sense of knowing that everything that's unfolding is unfolding within you, and that there's an okayness to that. I think that would be the message that I'd like to impart, that often when you're kind of first finding your way into recovery circles and entering treatment, you kind of get hammered over the head with like just these very very intense, often fear-driven kind of perspectives about what you need to do and kind of what your trajectory of healing needs to look like. And I think a certain amount of that is healthy and important, and definitely not minimizing that. But I think along with that, the perspective that I think is missing currently is just that understanding that it's okay. You can enjoy yourself today. You can be happy, even if it's just brief moments here and there. Recovery isn't something you need to wait years and years to kind of touch into. It's not something you arrive at after a certain period of time, has been my experience. And that took a journey as well, so not minimizing the journey that often needs to happen for that statement to resonate in a way that really is alive for someone.
Victor, congratulations again. I want to mention the title of your book, The Hidden Gifts of Addiction, The Direct Path of Recovery. Silver Award winner, Victor Bucklew. Victor, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Christine.